Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Welcome to Everything Cooperative this beautiful Thursday morning. And this morning, we have Mr. Wayne Swan on the phone with us this morning from Redding, California. Good morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Vernon.
How are you this day?
Oh, it's a bright, beautiful day out here in California.
Out here, too. And you are a tax accountant, and you founded American Tax Cooperative Corporation.
That's correct, Vernon.
Mouthful. Okay. So, looking at your bio, you have a very extensive work history. You've worked in all kinds of things. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I have what they call a diverse background. Some people might argue it being somewhat checkered, but my background's primarily in sales and retail management. I've also ventured into being self-employed as a taxi driver. And in my youth, I was also managed the martial arts academy.
Okay, going from fighting to driving. Okay.
Okay. Well, I've also been a real estate agent in the middle there, and I went back to school fairly late in life and got my degree in accounting. Shortly after the crash in 2008, the consulting firm that I was working for at the time went under, and I ended up in the tax business in 2010.
So how old were you when you went back to college, if you don't mind me asking?
I was 45 at the time. I graduated just before my 48th birthday. 30 years to the month from when I graduated from high school.
Great. Got her done. And the reason I wanted to bring that up, because it's never too late. For anybody out there that's thinking about going back to college, it's just never too late. I don't care if you're 45 or 95. It's just never too late.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is education, learning, it's never wasted. It's always worth doing.
Yeah, and your checkered background you talked about, I would imagine that every job you had, you learned something that you can use today when you're in your tax business.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, because I have been self-employed most of my life, and my practice is working with professionals and small business people, I can very much relate to the challenges that they face in, trying to stay competitive and profitable in our economy.
Right. Staying profitable in this economy. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and one of our duties as a citizen is to pay taxes, but we also are not required to pay more than our fair share. So that's part of what I bring to the table is I bring that professional expertise to help people manage their tax liability.
Well, some people believe that their fair share is zero, but we don't want to go down that road today. So, okay. All right.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. So how did you you got this diverse background and all these different kinds of jobs. You go back to college at 45 years old. You graduate 30 years from the day you left high school. Mm-hmm. And what are some of the kinds of things that would cause you to start a cooperative business?
Well, most of the work that I had done, that I'd been self-employed in, was basically just me. And the lessons that I learned in being self-employed, basically as a one-man shop, is as a one-man shop, you have to wear a lot of different hats. And if you don't have expertise sufficient to handle all those responsibilities, it's not enough to know what people, whatever people are going to pay you for to do. I was a very good real estate agent. What I was not good was, at the time, I was not good as an accountant or with taxes. As a consequence, I ended up with a tax liability that took me 15 years to get out from under. I learned some very hard lessons in that, which I, in my current profession, utilize to help my clients avoid the traps and pitfalls that I have had to deal with myself.
I got it, and I understand. I run a property management business. That's my day job, if you will. And I have 4 employees. I've had as many as 10. And even with employees, it's hard at the top making the decisions. I'd much rather have a group. I find that it's much more fun if there's a group of folks. I see that you and a friend started this business. So you got somebody to talk to. Somebody to help you make decisions.
And the other thing is, one of the hard lessons that I had to learn was it's much better when you're part of a team, because you don't have to be expert in everything. You could have somebody who has, financial background, a financial, head on their shoulders. You can have somebody who maybe they're a natural salesperson. You can also have people who have the technical ability to deliver whatever your products and services happen to be. But by distributing those responsibilities and that load, your likelihood of being successful as a business can go up dramatically as a consequence.
Got it. I totally understand. Now, I rode to the studio today in my Honda Goldwing. That's my favorite transportation, my motorcycle. And I see you were involved in a hit-and-run motorcycle crash.
I was going southbound on a city street here in Reading when a gentleman who was at a red arrow decided that he was going to ignore that and make a left turn in front of me against that arrow, and I hit the side of his car at 35 miles an hour. And then he fled the scene. So, I don't make a big deal out of that. It's one of those things that, things happen in life, and you just have to take them in stride and move on.
The reason I brought it up was, what did you learn from that experience? I mean, you still had to work, you still had to try to do something, and you're laid up. So what did you get from that?
There's so many lessons in things happen in life, and some things you get one little thing out of, and some things you get, a whole flood of learning experiences out of. I have to say for myself, that was a seminal event in my life. It really shifted a lot of things for me. A major one for me was, up until that point, I was pretty hard on myself, had pretty high expectations of what I should be able to do. And I had not really felt like I was fulfilling my potential. As a consequence of that motorcycle crash and learning, look, you can only do what you can do.
Okay.
That's really what it comes down to. You can do what you can do. And in my case, because I used to be right-handed, I lost the function of my right arm. I had to literally slow down and, cut myself a little slack, which allowed me to cut other people some space, to be a bit more generous with myself, generous with other people. Things started to fall together for me in that one of the reasons that I was very attracted to cooperativism once I encountered it is, the profit motive of most businesses. If you want to strip away all the spin about it, it's really about greed. It's the moral value of greed. Okay?
Yep.
Now, businesses have to be profitable to stay in existence. I'm not knocking profit, but there's a point at which it tips over into, every bit of that pie is mine and I deserve every piece of it. That's just flat out greedy. The advantage of cooperativism is going in, you have people who have your back, but it requires that you have to give up the idea that everything that is served on your table is yours. You have to be willing to share.
Yep.
So for a cooperative business, the fundamental value is generosity. Be generous with yourself, be generous with your co-operators. That's the term that I like to use. And to be generous with the people who really you're serving, your clients in our case, or your customers if you're in a different kind of business. That moral space is a very different context from which to run a business.
So I get greed versus generosity, G versus G.
I mean, it's really, that's the lesson that I really got out of my motorcycle crash was, in that event was that opening wedge of, hey, you can't do the things that you used to do. Are you going to beat yourself up about it? Or are you going to be generous with yourself and cut yourself a little bit of slack and then parlay that into generosity towards and for others? That was the lesson that I got.
That's huge. That's huge. I'm in an organization that do a little training in it that calls power. The definition of power is what you define as generosity. Power is accepting the world the way it is, okay, and moving within that. Okay, we're going to have to take our first break here in a minute. I really like what you've already talked about. You turn an adversity, a motorcycle crash, into life lessons, and then move your life since then and create power out of it. And I'm going to quote you, if you don't mind. Capitalism, greed, cooperativism is generosity. G versus G. I got a new saying here today. So we're going to come back after the break and talk about your American Tax Cooperative and what it does, how it does it, and how you're able to be generous with the folks that work in there and your clients. We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial. Information is power. That's why WL is a great partner for us, and National Cooperative Bank sponsors this program to give you information about cooperatives. But you don't get the power until you put it into action. Power is sort of dormant. There's power there, but it becomes useful power, action power, when you go to action. So we encourage you to find a cooperative and go buy from them, join them, or start your own, as our guest, Wayne Swan, has done. He started his own. And Wayne, you said once you encounter cooperatives, how did you encounter cooperatives? How do you find out about them?
Oh, wow. To tell you the truth, I can't remember the explicit point. I just remember an insight that I had when I was in college. One of the classes that I took was there was a team exercise that was used by NASA. And basically what it was is you're giving us a list of materials and, your spaceship's broken down and you need to figure out exactly what you're going to need to get, 1,000 miles across the moon successfully. The object lesson of that was it didn't matter which team you were on. Everybody came up with pretty much the same list. And interestingly enough, it was maybe one or two items off of what the professional astronauts came up with. So there's a wisdom in a group that, that as a group we have that there was an object lesson there. And then in my, I'm a pretty prolific reader. And in my reading, I came across this idea of, cooperative businesses, democratic principles, in terms of the governance, things like that. And I hadn't, believe it or not, I actually do remember where I came across it originally.
Okay.
I was reading a science fiction book by Kim Stanley Robinson. And in there, they refer to the Mondragon Corporation, Cooperative Corporation, as a business model for operating in businesses. And it intrigued me. So I went online and I started reading about the Mondragon Cooperative Corporation, how it got its start back in the late 50s. And I went, wow, this is really, really interesting stuff. And I started talking about it with some of the people I went to college with, and eventually one of them joined me. We started what was initially a stock corporation, just he and I, with the idea of buying a small tax practice. And we then reorganized that as a cooperative late in 2017. And now we have 5 people who are involved. Actually, I take that back, 7 people who are involved. 3 of us are owners of the company. 4 are people that are in process of becoming owners. And, we're building. We're doubling about every 18 months in size.
Doubling every 18 months. So the business, from what I read here, is a virtual. Where was that? What is a virtual?
We're a virtual tax practice. We specialize primarily in personal and small business taxation. And because we use a internet platform, people can submit their documents to us. We're based in California, but I have clients all over the country.
And so they submit their financials or their transactions or their
all the source documents that we need to prepare their tax returns. They submit via the secure portal system to us. We prepare the tax returns and we deliver those returns electronically. They e-sign them, and then we e-file the tax returns on their behalf. We also do tax advisory and also general business and development advisory work.
Okay. So I run a property management business, and so I have 14 properties that I manage right now. So if I wanted you to do their tax returns, I would just, well, in my case, I could give you a password and you can go on the accounting system and pull any documents you want. Trial balance,
right,
income statements, transactions, everything, invoices. You can pull anything you want.
Right.
Do you do audit work?
Yeah,
too?
basically. No, I'm not a CPA certified for audit. CPAs, by the way, are licensed by the state that they operate within. I'm what's called an enrolled agent. I'm registered with the IRS and can basically have the same standing as a CPA when it comes to taxation. However, I don't do auditing. Here in California, not even all CPAs do audit work. Matter of fact, a lot of them, because of regulations here, avoid it. Mm-hmm. But basically what I personally have a degree in accounting, but so I can, do financials. If people need me to do books and stuff like that, I can do it, although it's not my forte. I prefer to stay with tax, and it works for us. Okay.
So I could send you out or give you access to our drive, our software package, and you could do it. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, if somebody's let's use an example of a business, and that business is incorporated. It's a small corporation, and maybe there are 2 shareholders. Those 2, basically, to prepare the business's tax return, I would get their year-end financial statements. I would use that information to prepare the tax return. I would pull the supporting documentation to just cross-check the critical numbers, and from that, I would work with them on getting them in compliance as far as their income taxes are concerned. Individuals are more complicated because they typically have more things going on. So 1040s can have everything from a Schedule C sole proprietorship business to stock investments to, rentals. You get the whole range when it comes to 1040s, that being the federal tax form.
So I got that you have down here that you do from transactions to tax returns, financial management.
Yeah.
So where do the transactions come in?
Yeah, we're working on a system whereby with some business partners where using the MasterCard platform, people can make charges, take a picture of the receipt, and have that transaction level data flow all the way through their bank accounts and directly into our accounting system. That's still being beta tested. We're doing that internally, and eventually we're going to roll that product out as an alternative to traditional bookkeeping.
Okay. All right. Okay. So how does the cooperative work? We got 7 people. 3 of them are owners right now. The other 4 are becoming owners. They're working toward becoming owners. Right. So how does this work in your business?
Well, regardless of whether they're an owner or not, everybody has a voice. Everybody gets to have input on the decision-making processes. We do have a 3-member board of directors. Basically, our current ownership forms the board, but the board is also actively seeks input on major decisions, like whether we're going to acquire another business, whether we're going to, make certain investments internally, like this project that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. Because a business is a financial engine, anything that impacts the financial operations of the company, those are things that we discuss internally. Everybody gets to, provide their input. I'm a big believer of more perspectives and more input gets you a better result. That's what that exercise, the moon exercise was about, was this idea that you may get somebody who's brilliant who comes up with a better solution, but you're not going to necessarily get the same level of consistency when it comes to good decision making as you'll get with a group, because you'll have many different perspectives providing input. So we actively support and secure that input from all of our staff.
Wayne, we have about a minute left, and I want to thank you for being on. So what message would you like to leave people with?
I really think that cooperatives are the wave of the future. And the reason why I believe that is, of all the business models that are out there, it's the only one that can potentially that will scale, that will remain accountable, because the people who own the business work the business.
We got to go.
That's
Thank you.
Not true. Take care.
Thank you very much, Wayne. We'll be right back.